department store. Today's episode of Killer Biographies is brought to you by Rapid City Laundry, located at 312 Main Street, with free pickup and delivery to Ashland Heights, Box Elder, and Somerset. This month only, mention Killer Biographies to receive 15% off all dry cleaning or fluff and fold orders, comforters and decorative drapery excluded. Rapid City Laundry, experts in fabric care and keeping the Rapid Valley stain-free since 1928.
Episode 4.
4, and away we go.
Well, I would like to tell you a couple interesting things about the number
Please.
4. I had prepared some facts about the number 4, so I'd like to give those to you.
Great.
So number 4 apparently is the only number that if you spell it out, it has the number of letters it takes to spell it out.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a 4-letter. It's a proverbial 4-letter word.
Right.
4 is also associated in numerology with stability and structure. So I guess that portends well.
Well, we do plan to have a well-structured episode today.
On the other hand, in some Asian cultures, 4 is an unlucky number.
Whoops.
Yeah. So this could go either way.
Yeah.
There's 4 seasons. There's also the 4 noble truths of Buddhism.
That's right. Isn't that the final step in the whole thing? You get the 4 noble truths?
I don't know. You know, the only one that I remember is suffering, but it does feel like I don't know if it's a noble truth, but it's a truth.
There's also noble gases. You know, when you're studying the periodic table of elements, there are the noble gases too.
Well, there's an element apparently called beryllium.
Yes.
And somehow it's associated with the number 4. Maybe it's number 4 on the periodic chart. I don't know.
Well, exciting and great that you did a little research on your off week, right? Because this is my week to present, but yet there you are, you know, plumbing the depths of numerology to come up with these tidbits. They're good tidbits.
Yeah, I wanted to take some of the pressure off. I know there's a lot of pressure, you know, in the week when you present.
Well, it's another tag we can use for promotion, right? Because now we're sort of mathematically inclined.
Yeah, good point. Numbers, numerology, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would be the tag that we?
You know, let's have Lizzie get working on that since I've got a whole episode to get through.
One last bit of housekeeping. We did get a listener email from last week. This is from somebody named Nathan.
One email? Is that all? The inbox only contained one email this week?
Well, I give Nathan credit. It's from Nathan in Brisbane, which I guess is in Australia. But I give Nathan credit because we don't make it easy for listeners to find us. But he apparently...
We actively avoid it.
He apparently must have gone back and listened to one of the Killer Shipwrecks episode. Anyway, that's how he found us, on the Killer Shipwrecks show.
Awesome.
But anyway, he wanted to quarrel a bit. He thought I was too dismissive of the Bob Dylan song "Only a Pawn in Their Game."
Disagree. I heard the song.
Nathan says that it's a classic Dylan tune and a devastating critique of American politics, capitalism, and race relations.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's attack-oriented. I'm not sure that's going to help, you know, improve relationships that we have with the Aussies.
Thank you. I thought he came on a little strong. As a bit of an olive branch to Nathan, I will say that, Nathan, you're probably correct, but on that genre of sort of like Black Americans getting screwed songs by Bob Dylan, I prefer the tunes Hurricane about Reuben Hurricane Carter.
Love that song.
And there's another song I like called The Lonesome Death of Hattie Carroll.
Oh, interesting. That
Check
sounds familiar.
that one out.
Yeah.
And a fun fact about that, and then we'll get into it, is that the bad guy in that song, the guy, it's a real life story. The guy who killed Hattie Carroll was from a very wealthy, well-established Maryland family named the Zingers.
Wow.
And William, the guy that killed Hattie, went to my high school.
You're kidding.
No, which is weird because it's a Quaker school. So it's supposedly all about nonviolence. But William got drunk in a hotel in Baltimore and assaulted the waitress with a cane and killed her.
Oh my God. You know, I thought you were going to say that the family was well known as comedians. because you would think with a last name like Zinger, like you would have some good one-liners
Yeah,
prepared.
it's Zanzinger, but I
Well, it's
wonder.
Zanzibar, but you still have the bar. You know what I mean? And so when you have Zinger as the
Yeah. But anyway, Nathan, thank you for the email. I'm impressed you found us, and I will give the song a second listen.
as will I, because we want to support our listeners. And, we need our listeners to support us. So this is a perfect segue because, Lizzie has reminded us to tell the audience to rate our show, good or bad, engagement. So rate the show. Throw in a comment if you'd like. Sharing the show would be fantastic. Share the love, as they say. Killer Shipwrecks and Killer Biographies. And subscribe, obviously.
Subscribe. You got to subscribe. Hit follow. You go up there, you hit the little 3 dots and you hit follow.
Right? This isn't a telethon. We're just saying share, rate.
We're not going to spam them. It's like once a week.
All right, well, Dr. Troy, I think we got to
Yeah,
get into
we
this
gotta get into it.
episode. As some of our listeners have said, sometimes they get deep in the show and don't even know what we're presenting.
Yeah.
So let's break that mold. I've got a great story today, great biography. It's going to sound like, wait a second, we already know this biography.
Okay.
I'm going to venture to say you don't. So the inspiration actually came from your shipwreck in which you talked about Blackbeard.
Oh.
What occurred to me at the time was, Blackbeard, is that a real person? Like, it sounds real, but almost there's this mythology that's developed around him.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to someone who was a real person. However, most people will be familiar with her through her portrayal in films, TV, books, and so on. So guess who we're going to learn about today? You get one guess.
I get one guess. Calamity Jane.
Wow, that would be a good one. No,
Yeah.
it's Pocahontas.
Oh, man. I'm so glad. I felt like we needed to come back to either Pocahontas or Sacagawea because we just sort of like glossed over them in various shipwreck tales, and that wasn't
We
cool.
talked about with connection to John Smith and Pocahontas.
Yeah.
And so there was something nagging at me, and it was basically that I did not know much about Pocahontas. And I picture her as some Disney character.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, you said we probably don't know. I mean, I know the songs.
Yeah.
And
you're familiar with the name. Everybody knows the name Pocahontas.
Sure. But I think most of my quote unquote historical knowledge is derived from the animated Disney movies.
Right.
So there might be some space in between that and the real story.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether they classified that as fiction or nonfiction. However, let's get into Pocahontas today.
I can't wait.
It's going to be great. Now, she did have a very short life, but a very powerful life that, as we know, stories about her have persisted since the 17th century. So now...
Oh, I'm sad I feel like we're just getting to know her, and now I already know that she has a short life. That sucks.
Yeah.
That's okay. It'll give me more appreciation for each moment we go through.
Correct. And as we said, we know her through these myths, through these movies that have really glorified her life in a way that maybe is not entirely accurate. Fortunately, recently, in fact, in the last 10, 15 years, historians have unearthed a lot of material to provide a more complete picture of who she was and what her life was really like. A lot of people think of Pocahontas as someone who fell in love with John Smith.
Yeah, I was going to say shacked up with John Smith. Is that not true?
It's not true. And so, so all these myths have endured for centuries. And in part, it's because there wasn't a lot of real study being done about what her life was all about. So it's actually much different from how we've learned about her. And in particular, because of what John Smith initially wrote about his encounter with Pocahontas. So anyways, we're going to clear it all up and give you the straight story.
Fantastic.
Pocahontas was born in 1596. Incidentally, that was a leap year. And, I seem to always land on these things.
You have something karmic going on with leap years. Okay. But anyway, so she's born in 1596.
And her real name is Amanut. She also had an even more private name, Matoaka. Pocahontas was a nickname. It is translated as playful one or ill-behaved child. So that's what Pocahontas kind of translates to in whatever dialect of Algonquin that they spoke.
Okay, so she's Algonquin, huh?
She's Algonquin, and so her real name was actually concealed on purpose because the tribe had a superstitious fear that if the English people knew her real name, she could be harmed.
So is this down in the Jamestown, Virginia
is Jamestown
area?
Yeah.
Okay. And when did they get there? 1607, I feel
1606 is when they sailed. They got there in 1607. So she's about 9 or 10 years old.
Oh.
Yeah.
Huh.
Her father was a big time ruler overseeing more than 30 of these Algonquin speaking tribes.
Yeah. What was that dude's name?
His name was Powhatan. So it's
Yeah.
Powhatan.
Yeah.
Powhatan. Maybe.
Yeah.
So he was a very big deal in this part of Virginia that, as you said, will eventually be called Jamestown. And Pocahontas is known to be his favorite daughter. So
Wow.
definitely the favorite child. Not much is known about her mother. They think that's because of her being potentially of lowly status, meaning, maybe not a lot of wampum to put up for the wedding,
Mm-hmm.
or that she may have died in childbirth. So they don't know.
Oh.
They don't know. But they do believe that she was the first wife of Powhatan.
Yeah, those are her parents. So she's got some. At least the dad is he's a big deal.
Dad is a very big deal, well respected.
But they're going to keep that real first name secret, that Amanute thing.
Correct.
Nobody gets to know that.
Only Papa.
Okay.
So now, as you mentioned, in 1607, the first ships arrive in Virginia to start a settlement. And they are financed by King James, hence they pick the name Jamestown.
Yeah, that seems fair. He funded the trip. Let's just call it Jamestown.
Why not? And as you know, it became the very first permanent English settlement in North America.
Yeah, people make a big deal about Plymouth Rock. It's like,
hello,
Jamestown.
It's all about Jamestown. And it was not an easy life at Jamestown.
No. I just imagine back then swampy, a lot of mosquitoes.
Yes.
You know?
Terrible. So anyways, Pocahontas by this point is about 9 or 10 years old. And she finds this whole fort that's being built right near where she lives to be, quite the spectacle. So
Very
she starts
exciting.
coming over there.
Yeah.
She starts coming over with her friends and they visit this fort and they immediately start playing with all the young kids. And there's notes from the time where it says she, Pocahontas, would, quote, get the boys forth and make them wheel, falling on their hands, turning up their heels upwards, whom she would follow and wheel so herself, naked as she was, all the fort over.
Wait, I'm sorry. Hold on. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
So they're like doing cartwheels and stuff?
That's exactly what it is.
But she's also naked as a jaybird?
Well, unfortunately, they seem to make a note of that, which
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But she's 9 or 10, so she's very young. In any case.
And one good thing about Jamestown versus the Plymouth colony up there is winters don't get quite as bad down in Virginia as Massachusetts.
However, there was a period known as the starving time.
Oh.
And that was pretty much the entire time that these people were in Jamestown, from what I can read, because basically they're always starving. And in fact,
I mean, it was a bit of a giveaway that everybody would flock to Pocahontas and her friends and ask if they had brought any food when they came over to play.
That's right. And so it wasn't only about learning gymnastics, it had to do with survival. And by the way, Pocahontas, or Amarut, she was very helpful. So she really felt the need to help these starving colonists.
What the hell? I mean, there was all kinds of game in the area. There must have been a fish out the wazoo. Why were these people starving?
I think they're just like, they're trying to build this fort with the mosquitoes. And
maybe these weren't like the sharpest tools in the shed that got sent over to the New World. These were like sort of the expendables.
Yeah. No comment. I don't know these people. But Pocahontas, it said, and her attendants.
She's like a princess, really.
She's not a princess, though, technically.
Wait, why not? Her dad is...
I know she's not in line to inherit anything. It's a long story. But regardless, she is helpful. And it's documented by the colonists that she came to them when they were starving and brought food, which was recorded as being every once in 4 or 5 days. So that's what I mean. Like, they're kind of always starving.
Yeah. So it's like, we love seeing you. We just wish it was daily. Like once every 4 days isn't as good as once every day.
But they do credit her with helping them, particularly during the starving time. And to give you an idea, during the starving time, which was roughly 1609 to 1610, 500 Jamestown residents were there at the beginning of the winter, 61 at
oh my!
So that's a lot of dying.
Seriously?
Not good ratio.
It went from
they didn't have access to
down to
water.
What do you mean they don't have it? Dig a freaking well.
They drank brackish water. I'm telling you, this was a nightmare for
Yeah.
them.
Do you think the Native Americans were looking at them like, you idiots? What? Like, do we have to show you everything?
No
I
doubt.
mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's exactly what they were saying.
Wow, 61 out of 500 survived that. Oh,
The starving time.
boy. I take back what I said about the winters not being so difficult.
Yeah, pretty bad. Like that's not a good ratio. During that time, unsurprisingly, there's both historical and scientific evidence that the Jamestown settlers did turn to cannibalism, particularly
Seriously?
during the starving time. Yeah.
Wait, they definitely never taught us that back in elementary school.
Yeah, when they talk about a husband butchering his wife for dinner, it's actually like that's just what he did.
Literally.
So they could tell by the way in which the skeletons. I'm not going to get into an autopsy.
Jeez. I mean, I was going to say amazing tale of survival, but also maybe they were guilty of some felony crimes.
Yeah, exactly. Fortunately, prisons had not been built yet, so they're just going to, house arrest. In any case, as the colonists tried to expand their settlement, right? So they're going to try to grow this area.
Move to someplace where you can get some fresh water.
Yeah, they definitely need to branch out. And so that's when the Powhatans, led by Chief Powhatan, felt that they were being threatened. And so conflict started, because these Jamestown colonists were sort of spreading out a little too far.
So even with the little 10-year-old diplomat, the relations did sour at a certain point.
They did, primarily, again, because the Native Americans felt that their land was being encroached upon. And what would have ever given them that idea? I don't. Okay, so in 1607, as part of this sort of like spreading our wings a little bit, that's when Smith gets captured. So he's out hunting and he's exploring on the Chickahominy River.
Great name for a river.
Yeah. Well, especially when you find out that it's in the Powhatan capital of Wakamoco. And so, it's like it makes sense. Yes, pretty much. It's phonetic, so you'll be fine. In this account that John Smith does produce about his time after his capture, he does claim to have a long talk with Pocahontas' father, Powhatan. And he has this big feast with them.
How the hell do they talk?
It's a great question. I'm not sure how they communicate, but they do. Smith ends up writing this whole thing about how Powhatan brought out these two big stones and they dragged Smith over and they put his head on the stone or in between the two stones and he was going to be beaten. And then that's when Pocahontas runs in and puts his head in her arms and saves his life.
Oh, wait, is that true?
No, did not happen.
Oh.
Not only did it not happen, and there's people that have written subsequently about how angry they are that he wrote such a ridiculously embellished falsehood, but they also then attribute it to the fact that John Smith was known to just wildly exaggerate everything. That's literally what they say.
He was a fabulist. We should have called this episode Killer Mythbusters. I mean, between that and then the fact that some of the Jamestown folks were cannibals.
Right. Yeah, this has everything.
Yeah.
Something for everybody.
And I always thought slavery was the original sin in America, but I guess there was cannibalism before we even
we started early. Yeah.
Jesus.
We warmed up real good right from the start. So Smith, tells a story about being rescued, but they think that either it was sort of a ritual that was intended to symbolize his death and rebirth as a member of their tribe, like it's sort of a thing, and he didn't understand it because, as you said, there's a language barrier. Mm-hmm. The other theory is that he simply lifted that exact tale from a popular Scottish ballad.
No. Oh my
and that is what a lot of people really think.
So he's a plagiarist also. Oh, exactly. Lord.
But let's get to some of the factual components of the relationship that he did have with Pocahontas. He mentions a couple months into his captivity, meeting this 10-year-old girl, and that's how he describes her, little 10-year-old girl who's curious and bright. As we were speaking about this language barrier, it turns out that Pocahontas and John Smith were teaching each other some basic aspects of their languages.
That makes sense to me. If she and her friends were going over to the fort, kids are like sponges, so they would pick up some English just playing with the kids over there.
Yeah, she did, and she was super bright, and he writes about that. And there's surviving notes from John Smith from his time in captivity, and there's sentences like, quote, "Tell Pocahontas to bring me 3 baskets," end quote, or Pocahontas has many white beads, end quote. It's like they were connecting and learning some English, learning some Algonquin, and they were just sitting somewhere together, and they actually said those sentences to each other.
Which sentence?
Well, the sentences of like Pocahontas has many white beads. Like she's teaching him that sentence in Algonquin.
Gotcha.
He would write down what she says in Algonquin in whatever phonetic spelling he could come up with.
This is the first Algonquin roundtable. So it sounds like she's the star here. She's the really super bright kid.
She's super incredible. Like you wonder what someone like her would have been today.
All right, so they're teaching each other some language, and they're just getting to know each other. And then what happens?
Well, and this is part of that myth busting is why did this thing sort of take root that she loved John Smith? He mentioned that he knew her, and then it was really after 1800 that a lot of the writings about his relationship with Pocahontas, sort of come to fruition. And it's because at the time people were obsessed with nationalist stories, and they liked the idea that Pocahontas preferred white culture and Christianity. So they really played that up.
Yeah, and there's probably just some fascination with the other. And
yes, he eventually gets released. John Smith exits the picture. As it turns out, in 1609, right after he was released, there was a gunpowder explosion that forced him to return to England for medical care.
He got injured.
That's right. And the Powhatans thought he was dead because they kind of just told them that he was dead. After he gets out, there's still these problems happening.
Yeah, it sounds like there's nothing but problems for that Jamestown crew.
Terrible.
I mean, only 61 survived the starving time. He gets captured, then he gets blown up. Then, it's like, is anything going to go right apart from meeting Pocahontas and learning the cartwheels and stuff?
Enter Sir Samuel Argall, who's an English adventurer. He's a naval officer, a sea captain. He comes with supplies. He's finally shown up to bring some supplies to save lives.
When does he get there?
He gets there in 1610.
Whew. He's a sight for sore eyes.
Yeah, he gave them a lot of supplies. He was blown away by the condition of these people.
Yeah,
it was not a good time for them.
Yeah, I wonder if they fessed up to him about what they had eaten while he was
the cannibals.
Yeah.
Well, they say without Argall showing up, the colony would have been entirely destroyed.
Yeah,
in a few months, people would have been gone.
All right. How do we spell his last name?
Argall. Argall is friends with this guy Spellman, and Spellman is another Englishman. He's there as an interpreter for the Potawatomis who lived on the Potomac River, as you mentioned. Spellman finds out that Pocahontas is visiting the Potawatomi. And she's in a nearby village. And so Spellman tells Argall, hey, the chief's daughter is visiting nearby. We should capture her and hold her for ransom. And in doing so, we can get all our prisoners back. We can get everything that they stole from us back and then some.
I mean, I personally think it's a horrible idea, and I hate this guy Spellman.
Yep.
And it feels like Pocahontas from the get-go, all she's been is, lightness and generosity toward the white people. Now we're going to capture her,
Exactly.
But that's my view. I'm guessing Argall says, great idea. Let's do it.
You're exactly right. He's on board. He even comes up with his own idea, which is to lure her with a present, like a copper kettle. So that's literally Argall's contribution. Let's just tell her we have a copper kettle. We know how most young ladies like copper kettles.
Yeah, it's not the most complicated scheme that they've worked up, but let's see if it works.
Yeah, this was pre-Keystone Cops, so this is like, how about I show her a huge? Oh, I need 4 guys to hold this kettle up. Let me just so she can see it. Anyways, the point being that he goes along with the plan. Quick aside: Pocahontas completely goes through life assuming that most white people lie.
Yeah.
She does fall victim to the kidnapping. Unclear if it was the copper kettle.
I mean, she's such a good-natured kid. I feel like they didn't even have to bring the copper kettle into it. If they had just said, hey, come on over, she would have been like, oh, good. Wait, maybe we can do a language lesson, or I can work with some of your boys on the cartwheels, or,
She's fuming at this point. She's not happy, but she is living amongst these white people, because she is being held captive. We are going to take a quick break, and we're going to hear from Mary's. When we come back, we'll hear what happens to Pocahontas after captivity.
I can't believe they captured her, but yeah, let's take a break and hear from Mary's. For a great meal at an affordable price, try Mary's Roadside Cafe on Route 3 at County Line Road. Summer specials include grilled trout, patty melts, and a really nice vegan chili. Mary's Roadside Cafe. Good people, great food, and a killer view of the valley.
Okay, where we left off, Pocahontas has been essentially kidnapped. She's being held for ransom. Her dad shows up with the prisoners and he returns them. And he also provides a number of weapons and tools that, maybe someone had absconded with. And so he gives them all this stuff. There's this long standoff, and the colonists decide to just keep Pocahontas. Yep.
Double dealing rat
So when I say
bastards.
Pocahontas had a healthy skepticism of white people,
Oh my God.
she did not get to leave.
What in the world?
It's just
Powhatan came back with everything they asked for, and they said, yeah, we're still going to keep your daughter?
and then some. Like, he came back with a lot. And there's some debate over whether she was angry because she felt that he should have had more goods with him to exchange and that he didn't have enough. That's undocumented. So I'm just saying, I'm just putting that out there. That's one person's theory.
Wait, what year is she captured? How old is she? Is she still close to 10 years
Now
old?
she's like getting to be about 15, 16.
That sounds like the age where you would be like, Dad, this is what you think I'm
Right.
worth? Like, bullshit, At 10 years old, she would have been like, Dad, thank God you're here. Like, get me out of
Dad,
here.
you brought them this? I already have a copper kettle. Like, I mean, this is not an even trade. Like, come on, Dad.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here with like one of the nicest kettles this side of the Potomac. Okay.
She's listening to whatever the equivalent of goth music is over there at the Jamestown settlement. Okay, wow. Now, does Powhatan just get all his mightiest warriors and rain down hell upon the white people?
No, I think he leaves sort of like with that hangdog expression, like, couldn't get my daughter and my daughter's mad at me. And, it's like that type, like, a never satisfy her. Like, I gave the prisoners, I did everything. And little, whatever her name is now mad at me again.
Yeah, Little Miss Sunshine. Yeah. Okay.
So anyways, she's going to be held for about a year. And she's held in an English settlement called Henricus, which is present-day Chesterfield County, Virginia.
By the way, John Smith is back in Europe, right? He had he was injured in a fire.
That's right. He did not return to America.
So I wonder what her year looks like there in the in captivity. If it's a rough go, or if they treat her, pretty well.
There are conflicting reports about how she was treated during captivity, and not a lot is known. However, one colonist apparently wrote that she received, quote, extraordinary courteous usage.
Courteous is going one direction, and then you say usage. And
there's another account by someone named Linwood Littlebear Costello. He claims that Pocahontas was raped.
That was my big question. I thought that might be a problem.
I had to put it out there, but I will tell you that an equal number of historians dispute that fact. They claim that any mistreatment of Pocahontas would have gone against their interests in their negotiations with Powhatan.
I mean, these are probably the same historians who never told us about the cannibalism.
Right.
So I don't really know what to think. With the age that she's at, and it's a full year, and you feel like there's going to be some subsection of that Jamestown community that's just, they're not well behaved. So I worry.
Right, it's not all cartwheels and copper kettles. Yeah.
No.
So our heroine, Pocahontas, she makes the best use of her time. So she studies with the minister, Alexander Whitaker, and improves her English. She then, of course, learns all about Christianity, which they can't help telling her about. And then she actually is baptized. And she takes on a Christian name, Rebecca. So Pocahontas, people just start calling her Becky. Like, she's just Becky, at that point.
Man, this is really the girl of many names. Going back at the very beginning, she was Amanute.
Right.
And then her nickname was also Matoaka.
That's right. That was.
And then we get to Pocahontas. Yep. Now she's got Rebecca and Becky.
The Becky is an embellishment. I'm making that part up. But her Christian name was Rebecca.
She probably needed Christianity like she needed a hole in the head. I mean, I feel like the Indians were just fine with their spiritual system before the white people showed up. But all right.
Yeah. And that was also part of the London Company, which was, the King James sponsored company that sent these ships over, they wanted to convert Native Americans, to Christianity. And they saw that as an opportunity to promote even more investment and things like that. So Pocahontas also happens to meet a guy named John Rolfe, Rolfe.
Oh, now I'm starting to remember this. Does she marry this guy?
She does. And his wife, incidentally, and maybe we're teasing.
Wait, what? His wife?
Just let me finish.
His first wife?
John Rolfe's English-born wife, Sarah Hacker, and their child died in a shipwreck near what is now Bermuda.
Yeah, let's file that away for next season. We got a shipwreck there.
Already did.
Okay, but so this is good news. I thought you were going to say he's got a wife and a child back in England who don't know anything about his new marriage to Pocahontas, or Rebecca.
No, and John Rolfe,
dead.
Incidentally, they're dead. They drowned, and he established Verena Farms, which cultivated a new strain of tobacco and apparently made a lot of money for that colony. So we're not going to get into all that. At the time, he was known as a pious man, and he agonized over the potential moral repercussions of marrying a heathen. And so he, at that point, for him, that might be, bridge too far.
Say the moral implications of marrying a 14-year-old, but it's not.
She was of age at that point. She was clearly 16, or 18.
But it's not that troubles him. It's that she's a
heathen.
Quote unquote heathen.
Well, and the irony being that she had already accepted Christianity and now calls herself Rebecca. So he was still a little nervous about it. So he wrote a letter to the governor requesting official permission to marry Pocahontas. And he expressed his love for her and thought he'd be saving her soul.
God.
In his letter.
Wait, he asks the governor of the Jamestown settlement. He doesn't send a message to Powhatan to ask his permission.
No, he's not going to go through like learning Algonquin, like, oh, it's so cute. You learned Algonquin just to ask for my daughter's hand.
Yeah, I imagine like a montage scene where he's learning the Algonquin and there's, hilarious little like miscommunications, but then he gets it mastered enough that he can go over to Powhatan.
Right, like cut to Powhatan with like a wry look, like, what? Yeah, come on.
Exactly, like, you crazy kids.
Rolfe.
The disgusting thing is that John Rolfe's probably like 40, right?
He's definitely a little older.
Yeah, and she's 16. It's like,
I don't know exactly how old she was at that. She was 17, I think.
I'm not saying
actually, no, she was 18. She was 18. She actually was 18.
Still.
Yeah, it's very young.
This guy doesn't deserve her. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not just saying we need to put him on the sex offender registry, but it just feels
I'm
icky.
not here to judge. There are people eating people. Like, we're just trying to get through the winter. In any case. So he writes this letter. And in the letter, he writes, quote, motivated not by the unbridled desire of carnal affection. Again, not a great way to start the letter.
Yeah. Dude, as soon as you say you're not motivated by the unbridled carnal desire,
lead with that.
You pretty much are admitting that is what's going on.
Thou doth protest too much. What are you saying in the opening of your letter?
This guy sucks.
Yeah.
John Rolfe sucks. The other thing I remember about this guy, going back to my deep study of the topic in elementary school, he had one of those ruffle collars, those big fluffy ruffle collars.
Right.
It just,
good luck. It's embarrassing.
Probably already, got a receding hairline. I just, he shouldn't be with the princess. I know she's not technically a princess.
Yeah.
No, but she's like, and the apple of Powhatan's eye. And
such a lively, like smart, like person. Like, and now she's going to be stuck with some tobacco farmer.
And also, just full disclosure, I should have said this immediately, but my own mother has said that if I had been born a girl, my name would have been Rebecca.
Really?
Yeah. Oh. And I've never liked that name. So again, Pocahontas is such a great name.
Great
and then
name.
she's married to this moron with the collar, and he's calling her Rebecca. I don't like the turn of this narrative.
Well, I mean, the mystique goes away a little bit when you're just Rebecca Rolfe. Like it's like okay. Pocahontas. It's like what? And then you're like, is Becky Wolf coming over tonight?
Yeah. And then he brings her back to Europe, doesn't he?
He does. And first they're married. So first they officially get married in 1614.
So they get married, and now he's going to treat her like the circus freak, bring her back to Europe like, oh, look at the Indian.
Debatable. So again, we're about dispelling myths today about Pocahontas.
Okay.
So she lives on Verena Farms for a couple years. It's right across the James River from Henricus, and they have a son. And guess the name of their son. Your mother was going to name you what if you were a girl?
Rebecca?
And instead she named you
Kit?
your official first name?
Thomas?
That is their son. So their son, Thomas.
We got there eventually. Wait, so, okay, now she does have a son.
She has a son in 1615.
That's happy news, and she's a young mom, and I bet she really bonds with that kid, and so that's cool.
Fantastic mother, and she's also known as an agent for peace. So during her time living in Verena Farms, she's also, communicating with some of the tribesmen and basically allowing the colonists and the Powhatan tribes to get along. And they even called this period post wedding as the Peace of Pocahontas. And it lasted for about 8 years.
Really?
Yeah.
That is great. This is a big improvement over the starving time.
Much better. And so they even say at the time, quote, since the wedding, we have had friendly commerce and trade, not only with the Powhatan, but also with his subjects round about us. So it seems that there was some communication opening up of the channels at that point.
So it's fair to say that it's probably no longer an official captivity.
Yes.
Like, Powhatan's not like sending warriors there all the time to try to get her back.
No, it wasn't like that at all. In fact, during this period of peace, there was, sort of like connections made between the colonists, including Pocahontas and the tribes people in the area.
Just imagine the position she's in, where she knows both cultures and she knows both languages, and she knows, she kind of contains two different worlds. There aren't a lot of people in her position at that moment.
No, again, like you think of how she grew up and doing cartwheels on a fort, and now she's on this plantation. She's got this British husband. She's got a kid. Like there's a lot going on in her life.
Yeah, but she's still in contact with the tribes as well, and
negotiating, like making sure there's this peace, which was named after her. So yeah, people really respected her.
She sounds amazing.
She's amazing. So in England, the court there does not love the idea of their marriage. They believe it was somewhat controversial, but not for the reasons you might think. They didn't like the idea that a commoner had the audacity to marry a princess because they considered her a princess.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
I thought their objection was going to be straight the heathen or just a straight racist, like, wait a minute, we don't marry savages kind of thing.
Right.
But instead, they put it through the filter of royalty, of course. And she was the higher party. Huh.
Ironic. You leave America and all of a sudden the world's very different.
Yeah.
In any case, as you mentioned, they do go to England. So in 1616, after, living there a couple years, they travel back to England. The slight irony is that the captain of the ship that took Pocahontas with her family and all of their people that they left with was Argyle. So he was actually the captain of the ship after, kidnapping her, essentially.
Yeah.
Now he's the, captain of the ship.
Yeah. So at this point, 1616, she is, by my calculations, 20 years old. She's already seen a lot in 20 years. They're going back to England. Yes. Is this going to be for good, or is this meant to be just a visit?
It's meant to be a visit, an extended visit. So multiple years, but not forever. They go to England. And as you said, there's some debate over how she was presented to English society. Like, was she the civilized savage? And that makes them look good and get more investment in the company because they're converting people to Christianity. Or was she considered royalty, because she came from this very famous family?
Well, one answer to that would be, what was she wearing? What was she dressed up like?
Well, and it's incredible when you see the portraits that have been made of Pocahontas when she was in England, because she's dressed in that very formal Elizabethan style. A long way from the naked cartwheeling. Like now she's dressed up with the frilly, really ornate sort of clothing. And again, she's considered the daughter of an important chief. So she's presented, as sort of a big deal.
Yeah. Albeit with a commoner husband, but sure.
Yes, exactly. So she becomes somewhat of a celebrity, a lot of elegant parties. And she even attends what's called a masque, which is sort of like a play at Whitehall Palace in 1617. And she was brought before King James in the Palace of Whitehall.
Wow. King James meets Pocahontas.
Yeah. They watch Ben Jonson's The Vision of Delight.
Unbelievable.
Which, and Ben Jonson knew Shakespeare. So it's all like Pocahontas could have, in theory, met all these people.
I mean, yeah, it's amazing. She's, just over 20 years old and she's already been captured. She's already, served as a translator between white people and Indians. And now she's in England meeting the king. I mean,
She was all cozied up in the teepee as a 9-year-old with no clothes, and now she's with King James. They even said that she had seats that were described as, quote, well placed. So, good seats.
She got
like
good
box
seats. I mean, it sounds like she knew a guy.
London's Bishop John King wrote she was, quote, entertained with festival state and pomp beyond what I have seen.
But he's not making a play to take her away from Rolfe, is he? He's just extending courtesy to her.
And it's funny you say that because apparently he was so unassuming that when they met him, they didn't even know he was the king.
Really?
So he didn't present himself in some sort of formal king-like way. Yeah.
I tend to picture them all like Henry VIII,
Right. He was not. He was like, cool, it's just a casual day at the cinema or at the theater.
Hey, as long as they're doing the casual day at the theater, and it sounds like she's got a hookup for the tickets, does she look up her old pal, the guy that got hurt in the fire, John Smith?
Interesting that you said that they did run into each other, and she was kind of mad because she thought that he was dead, and that's when she made the remark about all white people lie.
Oh.
But they got along.
But it's weird to say she was mad because she thought he was dead. I mean, that's a weird response. Like, oh my God, you're alive. I'm angry. Because they had the connection back when she was a kid.
Learning the language.
And when he was a captive.
Well, I think that's why she was angry, because she's like, why wouldn't you have kept in touch?
Yeah.
Or why did, I don't understand.
There's a lot of captivity in this whole story. Like Smith's a captive, then she's a captive. And
just another day in the neighborhood back then.
Yeah.
But to get to your point, because you said, well, was she presented as a curiosity?
Yeah.
Some people do say that. Some people say that she was, less like presented as royalty and more just some Virginian woman, like, of a novelty type of thing.
I mean, I thought there would be people saying like, do some Indian tricks, like shoot an arrow or, show us how you're super quiet in the forest or something. But
right. Come back when photography is invented and I want to see if I can capture you on film.
Yeah.
Because there's that myth about you can't take a photo of a Native American.
That's a myth we need to look into.
It's really bad.
Well, I was thinking about that in our age of social media and selfies and all that. It's like the exact opposite of, at least that early myth about Native Americans, where it's like, no, don't take my photo.
So anyways, Pocahontas, Rebecca, and her husband, they end up spending some time living in the suburbs of Middlesex in something called Brentford.
Okay.
And there she's just an ordinary suburban housewife. Just Rebecca Wolf doing her thing.
Yeah.
And then
they still just got the one kid, or by now do they have some other kids?
Only one child.
Thomas.
So she's just one and done. And so, but again, she's only 21 at this point.
Jesus. Do you think she teaches him a little Algonquin, or it's just straight English for that kid?
It's a good question. If he knows Algonquin, it's going to help him get into a good school.
Absolutely. I feel like that's a good application essay, like I also speak Algonquin.
Right. So anyway, so they decide to head back to Virginia in 1617.
Okay, so that's a year later. All right, so they spent a good year in England.
And coincidentally, as if, you need the cast, Argyle is the captain of the ship.
God, this guy.
Taking them back. Yeah, so it's like one of those running gags. It's like, oh, hey, what's up? They get on board. She starts to feel very sick.
Oh, no.
And becomes really sick.
Uh-oh.
They barely are down the River Thames. They go ashore at a place, Gravesend.
Oh, geez.
So they're taken ashore at Gravesend, which is in Kent, England. Sadly, she died within like a day. Yeah, at age 22.
Oh,
21 or 22.
My God. Boy, they didn't put any of that in the Disney movie.
No.
The death at 22 in Gravesend, England. Oh, my Lord.
Apparently on her deathbed, as she was dying, declared, quote, all must die. And that for her, it was enough that her child was still living.
Wow.
She just has this aura about her.
What kills you at 22?
Well, they believe it was either pneumonia, some form of smallpox, potentially tuberculosis, or hemorrhagic dysentery, which at the time was known as, quote, the bloody flux.
God, the bloody flux. I don't feel like they've really narrowed it down much. I mean, that's like
pretty much everything under the sun. Yeah. But hit by a 2x4
or the Black Death.
So they do have a funeral for Pocahontas on March 21st
in England.
1617 in the parish of St. George Church in Gravesend. Her grave's exact location is unknown because the church was destroyed by a fire in 1727. But there is a statue there. So she's commemorated with a life-size bronze statue at St. George's Churchyard. One of the things that's interesting, among many, are all the people that claim to be related to Pocahontas.
Oh.
So I want to dig into that for a minute here.
Please do, because it feels like nowadays we should be able to just say definitively. I mean,
and we can. So let's get to it. There's Major John Bowling, who's a direct descendant. He marries a woman named Elizabeth Blair, who's the niece of James Blair, who was the founder of William and Mary College.
Yeah.
I'll spare you all of the kids.
I was starting to feel like Genesis there.
There's so many. There's so many. Like one marries Thomas Jefferson's daughter. Like it's all over the place.
Blair. Isn't Blair House something? Is that the vice president's residence in D.C.? Blair House? I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah. No, there was one direct descendant of Pocahontas that occupied the White House, which was Edith Bowling Gate Wilson, who was the second wife of Woodrow Wilson.
Wow.
She descended from the marriage of John Bowling and Mary Jefferson, who was the sister of President Thomas Jefferson. One really funny one is Edward Norton, the actor.
No way.
He's a 12th great-grandson of both John Rolfe and Pocahontas.
No, he is not. Dude, you buried the lead. Edward Norton? Oh my God. He's the 12th great-grandson of Pocahontas?
He is. He's a direct descendant of Pocahontas. 12th generation Poca. Yeah.
Wow.
So, a couple other myths, as long as we're busting up the myths. Pocahontas was not incredibly popular among Native Americans for a really long time.
Really?
Because they felt that she was always presented in a way that was flattering to white people.
Yeah.
That she's like this good Indian, like she admires white men. She admires Christianity.
Yeah.
And they took that spin on it. And so they sort of felt like she adopted that culture and left them behind.
Well, she was a little snotty when her dad shows up and tries to bargain her out of captivity. And she's like, this is all I'm worth. This is all you brought.
Well, she did go through the terrible teens, but I mean, she's still a good person. And in fact, she never did anything wrong to the Indians, but only tried to help people.
Yeah.
And so all of the good Native Americans at the time appreciated Pocahontas.
Yeah.
Because she was all about the good.
Yeah. And she was just caught like right at the intersection of two cultures. Edward Norton I don't see a lot of Pocahontas surviving in that
12th generation.
I mean, he sort of is got a pasty look to him. He looks more European than, indigenous.
Yeah. But I mean, in the right setting, maybe.
Yeah. If you lit him correctly.
Yeah. The lighting for sure.
Maybe he can do the thing where he catches a trout without a rod. Like he just puts his arm down in there and just.
We know he can be photographed. So, there's that.
Yeah.
Pocahontas was honored as the first Native American to be on a U.S. postage stamp. So 1907, she was honored with a U.S. stamp. She was also a member of the inaugural class of Virginia Women in History. So she has that going for her.
Inaugural class. It's like her people have been there for thousands and thousands and thousands.
Right. And I love that the inaugural class was announced in the year 2000. It's like, hang on there, Pocahontas. We'll catch up.
The amazing thing is that of the knowledge that I thought I had before this episode about Pocahontas, it turns out like 1% of it was true. The only true fact I had about her is she was from the Virginia area. That's about it.
Which is not insignificant. Yeah. And it's good to know geographically where she came from. But in all of the historical writings, more recently based on actual research, they all have this theme that she displayed extreme courage. She was incredibly clever. They thought she may have been brilliant because she introduced a lot of strategy to the negotiations. And so this idea that she was selling her soul or that she didn't love white culture, she loved white culture. She was more of a people's person, so she was very intelligent and helpful to people, so it's just so sad that she only lived to be like 22.
I mean, just an absolute spitfire. I mean, you kind of get a feeling for it right off the bat when she shows up without a stitch of clothing on and is teaching the kids to do cartwheels and is bringing food with her, shows up every 4 days.
Saving them.
Yeah.
Like literally saving them, like saving people from starvation.
Now, because I'm a good multitasker, I just pulled up an image of her when she is
in the Elizabethan garb.
In the Elizabethan outfit. And
very strange. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
It's so weird. It's not what you picture, when you think of Pocahontas.
I don't know. The face does not look like a European face, but then it's
not at all.
In that crazy European outfit. Look at that hat. Look at that.
Well, and it's interesting because she's always portrayed in these Disney movies as brave and strong, and but she's way braver and stronger and way more interesting when you actually learn what she was really like.
Yeah, and it's tragic that she dies at 22.
So sad.
Poor Thomas,
Unbelievable.
But also, she, from the beginning, it seems like she sort of straddles the two cultures, and where she can wants to facilitate them getting along peacefully. I mean, they have the 8 years of the peace of Pocahontas.
The Pocahontas piece.
Yeah.
The piece of Pocahontas. So it is. It's incredible that you forget she was like 15. It's like, what? Like, she's doing all this when she's so young. That is the story of Pocahontas.
4 stars. I mean, 4 stars out of 4.
Super interesting woman.
I didn't know any of it.
I'm a newt.
Especially, I'm a newt. She, especially embarrassing because I'm from Maryland. I should know this.
This stems from me just being embarrassed that I could not remember what the real story was. And how do you not know something so iconic?
Yeah. Cannot believe there was some cannibalism going on at Jamestown.
Yeah.
I can't believe.
Very surprising.
Yeah. That got buried.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, can't get over the fact that Edward Norton is a direct descendant of Pocahontas.
I know. That is insane. Are you teasing next week, by the way? Are you going to tease next week's biography?
I can. It is as far away in this world as you can get from Virginia.
Wow.
The other side of the world. This one's going to blow your mind.
Wow.
I can't say anything more about it, but...
Great tease. All right, so now before we play our outro music, let's remind our audience to follow, subscribe, share.
Also, one last thing, some sponsorship housekeeping. Terry or Susan, I'm not sure which one, sent us a check. It just said, good luck with the new show. The amount of the check, I can't tell if they think that they're paying for a single advertisement in a new show, or
are they looking for the same deal?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a lot of money, but maybe toss in a Terry's ad at the end of this.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, we'll bring in something from Terry.
Technically, he's supposed to go through Lizzie, so this isn't part of my portfolio, so it's weird to just send me a check. And like I said, it's not a big check. I'm not sure if he's still going under the 2016 rate card that we had, but maybe give him one spot at the end of this show or the next show. Whether you're thinning varnish or paint, cleaning wood stains, making moth repellent at home, or just maintaining industrial equipment, Terry's Turpentine has you covered. Terry's Turpentine has been family owned and operated since 1993. Terry's Turpentine, natural solvents of unnatural quality.
I want to note that we played the Terry ad before we even deposited the check. It's the kind of people we are, right? Because we're not just about the money. This isn't a grab and go.
The Pocahontas of the podcasting world.
We're just here to make everyone's day better.
Olive branch, facilitation.
All right, perfect. So, Dr. Roy, we will see you next week for another exciting biography. This one as far away from Jamestown, Virginia as you can
possibly
go.
Get.
Break out the atlases, the globes, whatever, and maybe you'll guess next week's biography.
Yeah, can't wait to hear the outro music.
Here we go.